Hello YouTube, welcome back. Thanks to Matti Kelby's generosity, we're back on his farm again today to get a bit of an update. Here's Matti. He's been stuck here now since May, thanks to the West Australian Premier. He doesn't seem to want you back. So
you'll run into me sooner or later.
Hopefully you will on one of your flights. But so what have you been doing with your time? You've obviously been working on some of these trees, but has there been some pruning here that I can see?
Yeah, gone through and pruned all the trees, well most of them. There's a couple here we didn't touch much, but further down, sort of the first pruning we've done. We actually had time to do it.
Yeah.
And being such a windy site, this is
certainly is today. Yeah.
Definitely need to try and keep that root zone ahead of what's growing sort of at the top. We won't have any problems later on, hopefully.
Have you had regrowth on any of this? Because I can see a flush.
Yeah, there's a flush there.
And this is, which variety is this one?
That's the 203.
Right.
Okay, there's some there.
Okay.
Some further up, sort of all over the place.
Right, okay, so you've made a pruning cut. I can see this, you've made a pruning cut right here.
Yep.
There's your cut.
Yep, try and keep that below this. Well, that's probably need to be cut off.
And there's your leader up there.
Get it to branch again.
So that's a good sign of health.
Yeah. The only problem is you end up with all these suckers at the base.
As a response to pruning?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
The trunk's reasonably thick now.
Yep.
And remind us again, how old are these trees?
They'll be 4 years old in February. These are some of the first ones I planted.
Okay. And they've flowered by the looks.
Some of them have.
Some of them. Well, this one, again an A203?
Yep. Yep.
This one's still got flower on it. And
yeah, it looks like there's a few nuts starting to set up.
They're healthy too.
It might be a little bit early yet, but...
Now, I mean, did you spray any of this?
No.
But I can see absolutely no sign of lace bug or any of the pests in the traditional farming areas. I suppose you're a long way away from the next macadamia farm. They wouldn't have travelled this far.
No,
but those flowers, they're healthy.
Yeah, they are. We had some aphids on some of them around the place, but they all sort of went away and flowers come out and bees come along and see what we get off them.
How about rainfall this spring? It's been a very dry spring for the northern rivers.
This clay soil holds moisture.
Yep.
Keep the organic matter and molts up to it.
And clearly some manure there as well.
Yeah, worm activity and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll get a bit of rain now and those nuts will size up, and a bit of calcium nitrate fertiliser I put out a couple of weeks ago will help with the cell division and push them forward.
Right. And the calcium nitrate was for what? Because you don't have acids. You don't have acid soil.
No, we've got high magnesium to calcium ratio.
So you're fixing that by adding calcium?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's always good for the plant anyway.
Yeah, it helps suppress diseases, helps with cell formation, division, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So it's encouraging to see the flush despite the lack of rainfall.
Yep.
Because it's clearly there, and that's another pruning cut, same thing.
Yep.
Spread out all over the place.
I didn't want to take too much off these because it was the first year they sort of flowered, and I just wanted to see what would happen. See how many nuts we could get off them.
Well, you'll get some nuts, surely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so the pruning, I mean, do you see it less bending as a result of this wind blowing? I mean, or is it, you know?
Yeah, you do. I mean, it's sort of, when the tree bushes up too much when they're young, it'll act like a sail on a boat.
Yep.
And they can blow around for the first, I found it's about 3 years they harden up the soil.
Yeah.
So the main roots grow down first and the lateral roots will grow out.
Right.
So follow the compost and worm activity out, and then they'll sort of solidify after that. But between when you plant them and that sort of stage, it's a bit of Russian roulette, really.
Right, yeah. And I mean, some varieties are obviously leggier than others. Are we looking on the right at
A38?
A38s, okay, so you can see their tall upright habit. They tend to have willowy branches, or so I'm told. And maybe they're a little bit thinner than the 203s?
Yeah, they seem to want to grow more upright.
Right.
Though they don't like the wind.
They've all bent this way with the wind.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, but they'll straighten up again?
Yeah, should do.
Right. And out here at Backmead, for those who haven't watched before, Backmead's between Casino and Kyogle.
Yeah.
Is this a prevailing wind, or are you getting different
Directions.
So, okay, so that's no different to anywhere else, really. I mean, do you get westerlies in winter? Oh, you're not.
Don't take much notice.
No, I suppose not. Well, you were here this winter. Yeah.
Yeah, I had too many other things on to worry about the wind.
Yeah. And was this a pruning cut thing, or did it lose its top, or what?
No, that was a pruning cut. We noticed last year was a little bit unstable in the wind, so just decided to take it right back and reset it.
Right.
It formed up into a bush.
Yep.
And you can see I've just picked bits and pieces out to try and get a leader and a couple of branches growing out.
And
Bit
it's
of an ongoing struggle with this wind.
it's coming back. Yeah. I guess eventually there'll be a bit of a windbreak for each other.
Yeah.
Once they get established.
Eventually.
Yeah. So let's head on down. Now you said earlier that you had some difficulties with some of the feeding that you were giving them.
Yeah.
Was this the spring feed that you would ordinarily give, or is it just something that you do multiple times a year?
Yeah, in years gone by, every 3 months we give a dose of fertiliser, once a year a dose of compost. And the compost pile we had sitting around from last year looks like the high sodium content in the cow manure has actually leached to the bottom of the pile and gone around and spread it out. And
Is this the pile over here?
yeah, that's it.
Or the remainder of it?
The remainder of it.
Right. So cow manure, like any manure, has some sodium content,
Yeah, in the feedlots they're fed up on a high sodium diet.
which is grain. Mostly grain, isn't it? Or good God knows what they
Not
feed
sure,
them.
but that's what I've been told.
Yeah. I've always had that doubt about cow manure, and that really these cows are being fed their last meal.
It works well on the trees when it's when it, hasn't got any salt or anything in it. But
Yeah.
just picked the wrong part of the pile and burnt a few young trees as a result.
Okay, so your theory then is that the salt in the manure pile that you got leached
To the bottom of the pile.
toward the bottom of the pile, but didn't go into the soil beneath it, or it may have.
It might have. I mean, I've moved that pile around with the new fence that went in.
Yep.
So I don't know if you can pick it up on camera, but there's
No,
a
it's
brown pile over there.
Yep.
Doesn't look like there's going to be any grass grow back there for a while, so
Okay.
early indications is salt.
So here's an example, a pretty sad example of what happened over here. What have we? I mean, you were providing the same amount of food for every tree.
Yep.
But it seems that some of them.
Same thing I've been doing for years.
Right. Only you'd hit the bottom of the pile, and this is what? How much a tree are you aiming at?
For the compost or the fertiliser?
The fertiliser.
50 grams. I've given them more in the past.
Yep.
Up to 75, I've had no problems.
And this tree is, well, that one's a goner, I think.
There's a couple that are burnt.
Yep.
They've still got a bit of green and it looks like they're going to reshoot. It's, Russian roulette.
That's a tragedy. But give us a time frame. How long between you feeding them and that happening?
A week.
1 week.
Yep.
So it can't have been anything else.
Had a share of rain.
Yep.
I thought, righto. Squashed a bit of nutrients from the compost so we can go out and put some fertiliser on.
Yep.
Another share of rain a day or two later. Within 4 or 5 days it sort of started to change colour. Yeah.
So is there some explanation then? I mean, I can see a few repetitions of that, and these are along your new rows here, and they're all, again, similar varieties. Some of them are okay though. Is this just then a function of where in the manure pile
Picked up from, yeah.
you picked up from? Because that one's got some green left in it.
Yeah, I'll just leave them. I've had some flush through them. I've given them a bit of water, try and flush it out, and we'll see what.
That one's doing okay for whatever reason. Some of these, I mean, look, it's a loss. Obviously, it's a very disappointing loss, but it's one you can recover from because, well, if you put in a new tree, it's not much shorter than the ones you planted around it.
Yeah.
But it seems very random.
It is.
This one's got some burning on the lower leaves,
See that?
but you think it would make it
Yeah, it will. Absolutely.
easily, actually, that one. And then there's others that just took a real dim view of it. What a shame.
That's okay, it's not bad. You always expect a few losses when you're planning out.
Yeah, well, I've had
The
those.
first couple of years, this is part of the game.
Yeah. What is it? Only the little ones that suffered?
Yeah.
Right.
Some of the bigger ones got a little bit of burning here and there, like that, but it's nothing like this.
Right. So it's clearly the babies that are sensitive to that direct application.
They are very precious.
And yet, you know, they tell you so long as the manure's well rotted down, it can't hurt the plant. So it turns out it could. And was that pure cow manure, or was there something else that was a grassdale added to it?
It's composted cow manure, but I don't know what else they put in with it.
Yeah. It seems like the salt index. You've got to be right. I can't think of anything else that wouldn't be excessive nitrogen, wouldn't be excessive anything else that would cause a burn. Well, they're sort of crying for it, aren't they? Particularly your G's. So were there any babies that did worse, any varieties that did worse in babies in terms of this fertiliser burn than anyone else? We can't see a pattern.
No,
we know
not
that
really. It's just random.
Just random amongst the babies. Well, that's a real lesson to be learned, and thank you for sharing your pain, because you may actually stop someone else from feeling the same pain.
Yeah.
Possibly me, because I'm about to do my planting, and I'm a believer in manure, but not if it does this. Or you've got to be careful. Yeah. So what do you think for the future of feeding these? Are you going to develop a new plan? Is there going to be a different feeding regime?
Yeah.
Based on chook or something else? Or
We'll use the same manure, but we might wait a bit longer with the first application of fertiliser. We might use a dynamic filter or something like that.
pelletised?
Just leave it and let it break down for 6 months or more.
Right. Yeah.
But no, I like the product. It's just
Well, we should head back to some of the bigger trees and see how they're doing. But yeah, I mean, it's a good product. You've got the right soil. You know, you would have thought you've got the right soil balance, and you're trying to obviously encourage the earthworms, which it will.
oh yeah, absolutely.
And you put the same manure in your planting holes.
No,
You haven't done that?
no.
Right, so it was compost you put in the planting holes, not manure.
Yeah,
Right.
compost made from chicken manure.
So you haven't. Okay, good. So your theory on filling a planting hole with compost before planting,
Yeah,
still good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2 or 3 times of planting, top up any nutrients.
yeah. I noticed here that there's cracks in the ground.
It's been dry.
Yeah. I just heard recently that cracks in the ground actually aren't a bad thing for farmers, because it means you've got some fantastic water penetration when it does rain.
Yeah, saves some deep ripping.
Yes, it can get in.
Things like that.
Yeah. So after tip pruning now, do you expect to? When's the next prune you expect to do on these things? Can you leave them for a year?
I'll go
Let them
along-
bush up?
I'll go along and pick off any sort of lower growth where I don't want it.
Yep.
Any suckers, I'll come along with the spray rig and spray them and burn them off.
Yeah.
And that just saves getting down, bending over, and heap of work.
Yeah. And based on past experience, when is your grass going to go out of control, or doesn't it go out of control?
It does. Around Christmas time onwards.
Yeah. Look, it's about November I start getting worried, but it depends very much on the rain.
Yeah.
2 years ago we had no rain up until about Christmas, and I thought this is easy. And then the rains came and I thought, oh gosh.
And in February it's like that.
Yeah. So will you let it, you've obviously got your methods, but will you try and keep mowing up to it over Christmas time?
No, I'll mow around the trees,
Yep.
Keep that clear and spray around them, and I'll let it grow.
Yeah.
So grass, as you may have heard, has a root to shoot ratio.
Yep.
So years and years it's been grazed like this, nice and low.
Yes.
There's not much organic matter in the soil.
Okay.
So if you let your grass grow, the theory is
There'll be more happening underneath as well.
more roots underground, and then when you cut that off, once a year or twice a year,
Yeah.
then you build up organic matter in the soil.
Right.
Increase water penetration and all that sort of stuff.
Now that yeah, and I was going to say, here's a A203 again, is it? Yeah. Healthy as. That's got to give you some nuts. That has to give you some nuts this year. Because there's enough, you can see there's enough, generation on the plant to build up the carbohydrates. Is there a couple of little baby nuts there? Yeah, there's, well, you'll know by Christmas if you've got nuts set. And still not worth spraying for really yet, I take it?
No, you wouldn't make any money.
No, well, you're not going to make money anyway,
No,
I guess, from this. But
2 years,
yeah.
Anything off, I think, or anything worthwhile to think of.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And so you brought your machine with you today, which I thought you should introduce us to, because unlike my zero-turn mower, you can actually purpose this for other things, which is...
Oh, you probably could with yours too.
Yeah, oh, look, we'll see. I mean, you'll have to show us what you've got set up on it, but it's a Ferris, made in America, I take it?
Yes, 61-inch Ferris.
Did you chose this yourself?
No, the old girl bought it.
Okay.
I went along for the ride and you get one of those.
And what was the thinking behind Ferris as opposed to something else? Was it what appealed?
I think a sister or someone, family member, mentioned the old girl that these Ferrises were great because of the suspension.
Right.
So you've got suspension in the back, suspension in the front.
I haven't seen this on any other mower. So there's rear springs.
Yep. And there's front springs.
The front springs are bigger for some reason. I know on my mower I'm the spring because I'm bouncing up and down the entire time.
Well,
everything seems metal too, which is, apart from that, all this cowling is
that's a fuel tank.
solid steel.
There's a fuel tank on either side, they're both plastic.
Right. Yeah, and that's, look, the Kubotas are like that as well. And they've got 2 fuel filters on top of that as well. So, okay, so on this, on the front here is the Sylvan tank.
Yeah, 55 litre.
55 litres, okay.
Battery powered sprayer.
Okay, and the pump is, I'm taking it the thing that says pump.
Yep, little pump and little switch there.
Okay.
And these are your 2 clips. So there's a battery that sits under the seat.
Okay.
And I just run the wire in under to the battery. The same battery runs the mower.
Okay.
And it all just runs off that battery.
And what then do you spray with? Is it this? Is this the thing here? Right. So show us that, because I know you mentioned it the last time we visited, but this particular hood here is something you can put down at close to ground level.
Yeah, absolutely. Stops the spray drift.
Stops spray drifting onto a macadamia leaf.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
We don't use Roundup, so
you've got your cocktail of Basta diesel.
No, not diesel. Basta, ammonium sulfate, haloxyfop, Protec oil, and a red dye.
The red dye to show where you've sprayed. Okay. And the dye then goes away after a while.
Yeah, pretty much. You get a share of rain.
Right.
It just dries up.
So you sit with your legs over the tank?
It's a bit of a pain to get on and off, but
right.
You just sit there, throw your legs over the tank.
So where's your foot control for raising and lowering the deck on this thing?
I keep the operations separate, so the mowing and the spraying separate.
Okay.
This is in the road, but this is it here.
So that, okay.
Yeah, push that forward, push that lever across, drops the deck.
So when spraying, you've always got the deck up, I take it?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've got a certain mowing method now that you've got down pat to get through the trees. Do you want to show us that? It's probably better to demonstrate.
If you want to pause the video, we'll take the spray tank off and we might
absolutely
find some more grass up the hill.
Absolutely. Let's do that and we'll come back with the demo. Okay, we're back. Matty's now going to show us his row mowing method for baby macadamias. I'll stand back We've got a bit of noise, obviously. I'm sorry about that. Okay, that's interesting. Instead of doing a weaving path through the trees, he's actually going around each tree and staying on the same side of the row and coming back. So it's discharging out the right. Okay. And there's the end product. I can see that. What I was expecting you to do, and what I generally do, well, not run over a tree, no, but I normally snake between them in a sort of almost a figure eight sort of arrangement, and I go down one side, do a figure eight, and then down the other side. But you've actually,
the idea of doing it this way is to get all the weed seeds to sort of blow out flowers and just anything that can produce more weeds.
right?
Get it out of the road, and then you're left a little tuft of grass or whatnot there that you can just hit with your herbicide.
Of course, yep. Okay, so in each case you are discharging away from the tree?
From the tree to the interrow.
Right. So that's why you don't cross over and do a snake between the trees sort of thing.
All the weed seeds away.
Yeah. And that does end up with a fair bit of stuff in the middle of the interrow.
It does, yeah. I'll go along, I'll do the whole orchard like this.
Yep.
I'll come along and spray any crap around the tree.
Yep.
By the time that's all done, we might come back and do a fertiliser run.
Yep.
It's that time of year.
Yeah.
Then we'll come along and push all the grass back up against the trees.
Yeah.
Put a layer of compost around the top.
When you need to both herbicide and fertilise, what would you do first?
Herbicide first.
Okay.
So all your weeds and that are all competing with that tree.
Yes.
You put fertiliser down.
Yep.
Then they pick up on that and take off and steal it from the tree.
Right.
In this early stage.
Yeah. So your herbicide first, you can pile, after it's got herbicide, you can then pile fertiliser on top of that and it's not going to harm anything.
No, so I'll do grass clippings first.
Right.
So the grass clippings stay in place.
But you've just moved grass clippings away from the tree.
Yeah, just to cut out all the weeds and whatnot.
Right.
Then we'll come back later on in a couple of weeks and push it all back up under.
Right.
You can see over here.
I can see what you've done there, but how did you do that?
So I'll do this, right?
Yep.
And then we'll come along a couple of weeks later once all the weeds and that have been sprayed and died.
Yep.
We'll start in the middle and throw our discharge towards the tree. Just keep doing laps and it just builds up in a windrow.
Right, so you're taking the discharge that we see here, for example,
Centre of the row here.
a couple of weeks ago,
Yep.
call that a couple of weeks ago,
Yep.
and then just pushing that back under the trees.
So start in the middle here, go down here.
And by that stage it's straw. Well, you've...
Straw on it, yeah.
Right, and you
It's a
think...
lot easier to move.
Easier for the mower as well, yeah. Right, and then at the same time you're mowing the interrow and getting that down.
I might do that once a year. The rest of the time I'll just do it like this and leave it.
And this will be a big mohawk? This will be a big...
Oh yeah, I'll let it grow.
Right.
This year I'm thinking we might mow it down and push it up into a pile and make some more compost, grass-based compost and that with it.
Makes
Yeah.
sense, I suppose.
Grass clippings are good, but I think as a composted product it goes a bit better. As time goes on, I'm going to need to move this compost pile out to attract these roots to come out and
Yeah.
build your tree height up.
What do you think of the latest AMS stuff about using the interrow for a mixed planting? You know, the tillage radish that they're saying, and the clovers and other sorts of stuff for the interrow. Are you a fan of it?
I haven't really looked into it too much.
Yeah.
What are the benefits? Bring more pollinators in? beneficials?
Supposedly it brings more beneficials in, better for integrated pest management, because your beneficials will live there, the pollinators then get a year-round source of flowering.
Yeah.
And then things like the tillage radish just break up the soil, physically break up the soil to keep it aerated. I'm not sure. I mean, they don't really talk about its downsides. I think if you've got too much of once you start cropping, if you've got too much of a mohawk in there, it's the ideal hiding place for rats.
Rats, snakes.
And snakes with them,
Yeah.
looking for the rats. And you know, you also rob yourself of a bit of carbon that you can push back while doing what you do, getting some soil carbon back into the soil.
I used to we used to put the compost down first and put grass clippings over it, then it just blow away. So
The grass clippings then blew away. Right.
or if you're using another product, you know, wood chips or whatever you want to use.
Yeah.
Have you thought about what you're going to use in planting?
I do want to use some sort of compost. I've seen Garth's videos and he's a fan of tea tree mulch. I just get the feeling tea tree mulch is going to blow away a bit too easily because it's light, but I haven't really worked with it, so I don't. It's just a suspicion. What do you think?
I've used it here in the past. It's a pain in the arse to put out
Right.
by hand because it's so prickly in that. And
Oh, it's prickly.
yeah, it takes a long time to break down.
Okay.
So
I thought it'd be quick to break down.
no,
Yeah.
it's not. It's the opposite.
Right.
If you got some of that and mix it in with some grass clippings and wood chips and let it break down a bit,
Yep.
and then put that out, that may be better.
Okay.
You've got
I definitely want to do your idea of the moisture crystals.
Yep, water crystals.
The water crystals, I've seen a couple of brands. I don't know, I forgot to ask you what brand you use, but the Bunnings have a couple of them. That one or two of them say they last 2 or 3 years.
I get a bag from my agronomist.
Right.
I'll just say I want a 15, 20 kilo bag of water crystals and $300, here you go.
That might be cheaper than Bunnings anyway.
You can plant over 1,000 trees with that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm only going to do 70 this autumn with any luck, and maybe some extras to fill in gaps.
Once you open the bag, it's a good idea to put them into a sealed bucket, because otherwise they'll pick up
moisture from the air.
the air.
Right. So yeah, don't buy more than you need to use. Would that be a decent rule?
If not, store them in a sealed bucket.
In that sealed bucket.
Same with your chemical fertilisers.
Right.
Do the same thing. Any leftovers I get go into a sealed bucket and
Yeah.
don't have to worry about them going off.
Yeah. I'm going to stick with some of what I know in the sense of I'm going to still use some Osmocote and still use some pelletised chalk-based product as it grows. That seems to be working for me. Look, it's hard to tell. I mean, I've seen these babies are really happy with what you're doing with them, so you can't be doing the wrong thing. Apart from the accident you had, which is, I just think that's tragic.
Yeah, shit happens.
Yeah.
You can plant 1,000 trees or 500 trees or however many you want, and for the first couple of years you can always expect a couple of losses, whether that's in the first 6 months or a year and a half later you lose one to a fungus, or it's blown around in the wind and snapped its roots and just keels over.
No, I had a rogue cow take out one of my best young 246s, and it just bowled it over pretty much right over the graft, and I thought, you know what, and you've just got to learn not to take it personally, and I know for a fact that wasn't my fault, but you curse it and then just move on, because you will get some casualties until they're big enough to be big trees.
The worst part about all this is you got all those problems that can come along and bite you in the arse on the way through.
Yeah.
The real problem is nurseries or suppliers doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That just compiles the problem even more.
Well, I've got 2 nurseries to depend on for my next babies. Tim I have no problem with. He's got the deposit. I'm doing it the way you're meant to do it.
You won't go wrong there.
You give him the deposit, he'll give you the trees in autumn. I've got to do the other thing with Marco Prenzel up in Queensland for their 783s, because he's the only one who can supply them. He does do a great tree, but then got to do my mapping and then get them planted at the right time. So and hopefully they all sort of work out this autumn, and hopefully if La Nina still hangs around, we'll get some decent rain to start them off with. Yeah. So towards you know, it gets hotter from now, obviously.
It does.
It was 31 yesterday in Rosebank. I don't know what it was for you.
It's starting to go up with the temperature. If you've planted anything in spring,
Yep.
and it hasn't sort of put its roots out in the soil, as these temperatures rise and getting those little heat waves above your 30s, 35s, that's when
you
keel over. Yeah.
Right. So do you water if you have to?
No, I'd plant them at the right time of year.
Okay.
And we'll pile all that shit up against them.
Right. Well, I'm not spring planting anymore. There's no way that's
I
happening.
did that 2 years ago and I'm
Yeah.
still replacing a row.
Yeah. So none of these trees have really suffered any ill effects of any feeding and that sort of stuff. They all look.
The bigger ones, they went alright.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And if you had to say there's a standout variety in terms of the spring growth this year, what's been jumping out of the ground the fastest? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, you're right. I was going to think about that. 203s, A16s. No, not A16s, sorry, 816.
Yeah.
So far.
The A38s look like they're growing fast.
Yeah, J's.
The J's are still good?
Yeah, around Christmas time we'll get a really big push. So
Okay.
we'll get a lot more rain and heat.
Yep.
And another round of fertiliser around Christmas time.
Okay.
And they'll just leap out of the ground.
Okay.
2 years ago I had a couple of A38s that went from 4 foot to 7 foot in 3 months.
Okay, so we can expect growth between December and March.
Yeah,
Big flush?
Around Christmas time's really good.
Okay. Do you try and feed to time for that? Because I've heard what the common wisdom is when you feed manure to a baby, it takes or when you feed to manure to anything, it takes a month for those nutrients to be available to the plant.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe less.
A bit
I don't
less.
know.
So with the manures and that, you'll get an initial hit that comes off the rain.
Yep.
And then 12 months later, once it's cycled through the soil from the worm activity, worm castings, and the tree picks up on it,
Right.
and you've got another application on, that's when you expect a really big hit, a big growth hit.
Okay.
So it's a mixture of the worm castings in the soil and then the right amount of rain and just building up the castings and
Right.
manures and that
So the performance trick is have the nutrients available
in the hole.
in
when
the
you plant.
in the hot and the well in the hole when you plant,
Yeah.
but then as they grow during the hot and the wet.
Yep.
Right. And then do you feed in autumn?
May.
May.
If it's wet. Yeah.
Right. Because it then stays wet until June, July, and then dries up a lot.
Yeah, I might give the September application away going forward with what happened down there.
Well, or do something different.
Yeah, something different. Or even just leave it.
Yeah. It seems to be that there is a spring flush though. I mean, if these things are growing,
There is every,
then they're using nutrients.
yeah, August, September, and then flowering finishes, they'll stop,
Yep.
nuts will size up, and then December.
Right.
In history here, it's been December, get a bit of rain and they take off again.
Good. Oh well, that's a plan moving forward. And you're doing some more planting this autumn?
Yeah, I think we've got over 1,000 trees coming.
Wow. Way bigger scale than me. But
So I'll knock
yeah.
that out in 10 or 12 days, 2 of us.
Yeah.
Should get me up to around 3,700.
Yeah.
We've got 400 or 500 holes down there, a couple of replacements here, and then another 500 holes over the back, and over the side there's 200 or 300 holes that haven't sort of filled yet.
Okay. Well, that's great. And then you mentioned that there's another side of the hill. Is it over the top of that hill up there?
Yep.
I mean,
There's holes there that are fermenting with compost at the moment, have been since last Christmas,
okay.
but it's open grass cattle paddock, so there's not much to see really. It's just a
Okay.
hillside.
Oh no, I'm not asking to see it. I'm just saying
No.
that's a potential future planting.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's another one on the front.
On the front side. Wow. So it's a very, very big ongoing operation.
5,000 trees we should have in here.
Yep.
I had to stop, I couldn't keep going down the bottom because it just got too wet. I had
Okay.
to go another 7 or 8 trees in each row. We had a big downpour there 2 years ago and it's too wet down here.
Yeah.
Same thing down the bottom there. Once I get them established, I'm going to have to mound, the agronomist says. So,
Yeah, although they're
Okay.
doing it down in the sugarcane flats down in Pimlico, they're mounding a lot of trees, or a couple of feet up from the surrounding soil. That's partly to do with salt,
yeah, okay.
as well as the moisture.
Yeah, apart from the manure, we haven't really got that problem here.
No.
It does go underwater there,
Yeah.
But like the last time you were here, you noticed there was that bit of a muddy patch we drove in.
There was. I'm noticing no mud now.
No, 2 days later that was gone.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It looked like it had hung around for a bit, but yeah, it still doesn't look overly dry. Like if we look at this track, this is your.
Yeah. The trick is let the grass grow.
Yeah.
Let it grow. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And then these, we hope, are going to give you a little bit of a windbreak.
No, eventually they're 2 years in the ground. They'll need high wind in the ground, so they're pretty quick growing,
but maybe not quick enough for you. Yeah.
Well,
But
this is what the agronomist suggested. Casuarinas, these are the common names, black she oak.
yeah. Oh, they're casuarinas, all right. Yeah, I'm just wondering if they're ideal for the area.
Well, they're sort of the only one I could find that was growing or did well inland.
Yeah, on that kind of soil. But no, otherwise great. All right, well, let's hope we get some more rain, because I kind of think we need it.
Yeah.
At the moment, I've been walking around my farm and doing some skirting, and yeah, there's been dust. Yeah,
Nutset's looking good.
Nutset's looking all right. Yeah, there's plenty of flowers around, but you get around on the mower and you zip around and try and mow some things, and when you blow your nose at the end of the day, you can give yourself a real nasty surprise.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of dust in the air, and you tend to breathe a bit of it.
Seems like my work.
Yeah. Oh well, your real work over in Western Australia. Yeah.
Dust everywhere.
Yeah. Anyway, Matti, thank you so much for seeing us again,
No problem.
and giving us an update on your farm. It's a beautiful venture, and I'm hoping that we can get to catch up again some stage and see what happens when nuts form, because that will be a first for you.
Oh, we had a couple last year, but
But first
This
in
year will be a
terms
bit
of
better.
and then we'll might actually have a look at your varieties and actually look at the ones that have got nuts, and give people a real idea of what is an early bearer and what isn't from a farmer's perspective, as opposed to CSIRO.
Yep.
So
yeah,
wonderful.
That's a good idea.
Looking forward to that. Thanks very much.
No problem.
See you later. Oh, and if anyone's got questions again, I'm sure Matti's going to be available to answer them in the comments section below.
Yeah, absolutely.
Catch you soon. Bye bye.